Welcome to Lesson 14 of Story-Based English. In this lesson, a sailor named Marco sets off alone across the Atlantic Ocean. It is a story about the sea, but also about what we discover when we are completely alone with our thoughts. By the end of this lesson, you will know 10 new vocabulary words, and you will understand a grammar topic that confuses many English learners: how to use articles with abstract nouns. When do you say courage, the courage, or a courage? This lesson will make it clear. Let's begin. Okay, here is our first sentence. Listen carefully. Marco chose solitude over comfort when he left the harbor in a small vessel, seeking freedom on the open Atlantic. Let me read that one more time. Marco chose solitude over comfort when he left the harbor in a small vessel, seeking freedom on the open Atlantic. All right, what a beautiful opening. First, the word vessel. A vessel is a large boat or ship. It is a formal, slightly literary word for a watercraft, a fishing vessel, a cargo vessel, a naval vessel. Vessel is used in news, maritime context, and formal writing more than in everyday speech. Now, the word solitude. Solitude is the state of being alone, but by choice, and often in a positive or reflective way. Solitude is different from loneliness. Loneliness is being alone and feeling sad about it. Solitude is being alone and finding peace, calm, or inspiration in it. Writers, artists, and thinkers often seek solitude because it helps them focus and reflect. Here is our first grammar point. Look at this sentence carefully. Marco chose solitude over comfort, seeking freedom. 3 abstract nouns: solitude, comfort, freedom, and none of them has an article. No the, no a, just the bare noun. Why? When we talk about abstract concepts in a general sense, not a specific instance, we use no article. This is called the zero article. Courage is important. Love is beautiful. Freedom is a human right. Education changes lives. In all of these, we are talking about the concept as a whole, not a specific example, so we use no article. Think of it this way. If you can replace the noun with the idea itself and it still makes sense, use no article. He chose solitude means he chose the general concept of being alone. This zero article pattern is one of the hardest things for many English learners because many other languages use articles with abstract nouns. In English, when the concept is general, no article is needed. Marco has chosen solitude and freedom. Let's see what the ocean is like. Here is sentence 2. Listen. The vast ocean stretched in every direction, and Marco realized that navigation at sea requires not just skill, but also deep trust in the instruments. One more time. The vast ocean stretched in every direction, and Marco realized that navigation at sea requires not just skill, but also deep trust in the instruments. This sentence gives us 2 beautiful new words and reinforces our grammar. First, the word vast. Vast means extremely large, immense, almost impossible to measure. A vast ocean, a vast desert, a vast difference. Vast is stronger than big or large. It suggests something so large it overwhelms you. When you stand on a beach and look at the ocean, the feeling of this is enormous. That is what vast captures. Now, the word navigation. Navigation is the skill or process of finding your way, especially at sea, in the air, or on a journey. Before GPS, sailors used stars, compasses, and maps for navigation. To navigate is the verb. A navigator is the person who does it. In modern English, navigate is also used for websites and life situations, navigating a career change. Look at the abstract nouns here. Navigation requires skill and trust. Navigation, skill, and trust. All abstract nouns, all with no article. General concepts used in a general statement. But notice trust in the instruments. Here, trust has no article because it is still a general concept, but instruments has the because they are specific instruments on the boat. This contrast is important. Abstract nouns are often zero article, but the words around them might have articles. Trust is general, but the instruments are specific. Getting this balance right is what makes your article usage sound natural. Marco is alone on a vast ocean. Let's see how isolation affects him. Here is sentence 3. The isolation of the open sea tested his resilience, but Marco found strength in the silence surrounding him. Let me read that again. The isolation of the open sea tested his resilience, but Marco found strength in the silence surrounding him. This is where the story gets deeply personal. First, the word isolation. Isolation is the state of being separated from other people or things. It is similar to solitude, but isolation can be imposed rather than chosen. A prisoner in isolation is forced to be alone. A village in isolation is cut off from the outside world. In this story, the isolation is partly chosen, but also a consequence of being at sea. Marco cannot contact anyone, even if he wants to. Now, the word resilience. Resilience is the ability to recover from difficulties, to bounce back from hardship. A resilient person does not break under pressure. They bend and then spring back. Resilience is one of the most valued personal qualities in English-speaking cultures. You will hear it in education, therapy, business, and sports. Building resilience is a common goal. Now, the grammar. Look at the isolation of the open sea. Wait, earlier we said abstract nouns take no article when they are general, but here, isolation has the. Why? Because this is a specific isolation, the isolation of the open sea. It is not isolation in general. It is the particular isolation that comes from being at sea. The pattern is the plus abstract noun plus of. The beauty of the sunset, the importance of education, the courage of the firefighters. When you specify which beauty, which importance, which courage, by adding of something, you need the. Compare. Courage is important. General concept, no article. The courage of the rescue team was incredible. Specific courage, specific team, so you need the. This is one of the most useful article patterns. If you can answer the question, which one, use the. If you mean the concept in general, use no article. Quick recap. We have now seen 2 article patterns. Pattern 1, no article for general abstract nouns. Freedom is important. Pattern 2, the before specific abstract nouns. The freedom of the open sea. Can you feel the difference? General equals no article. Specific equals the. There is one more pattern coming. Let's continue. Here is sentence 4. His provisions were running low, but Marco had learned to ration with care, treating every meal as a small victory against the ocean. One more time. His provisions were running low, but Marco had learned to ration with care, treating every meal as a small victory against the ocean. This sentence shows the practical side of the voyage. The word provisions. Provisions are supplies of food, water, and other necessities prepared for a journey or a specific period. Before a voyage, you stock up on provisions. Before a winter, farmers gather provisions. Provisions can also mean clauses in a law or contract, the provisions of the agreement, but in this story it means food and supplies. Look at an interesting phrase here, a small victory. Victory is an abstract noun, but here it has a small victory. Why? Because this is describing one particular kind or instance of victory. It is not victory in general, and it is not a specific identified victory. It is one example, one type, a small victory. Think about it. Victory is sweet, general, no article. The victory of the team, specific, the. A small victory, one instance or type, a. We will explore this and pattern fully in the next sentence, but start noticing, with abstract nouns usually describes a type, a kind, or a single experience of that concept. Marco is surviving and learning. Let's see what the voyage teaches him about himself. Here is sentence 5. In a moment of deep contemplation, Marco felt a gratitude he had never experienced before. Not the gratitude you feel for small favors, but a complete, overwhelming thankfulness for being alive. Let me read that again. In a moment of deep contemplation, Marco felt a gratitude he had never experienced before. Not the gratitude you feel for small favors, but a complete, overwhelming thankfulness for being alive. This is the emotional heart of the story, and it is a grammar masterclass. First, the word contemplation. Contemplation is deep, thoughtful reflection about something. When you sit quietly and think deeply about life, meaning, or a problem, you are in contemplation. Contemplation is more than just thinking. It is slow, deep, and meaningful thinking. Monks, philosophers, and artists are known for contemplation. Now, the word gratitude. Gratitude is the feeling of being thankful and appreciative. It is deeper than just saying thank you. Gratitude is a genuine, heartfelt appreciation for something in your life. Research shows that gratitude is strongly connected to happiness. The more gratitude you feel, the happier you tend to be. Now, the grammar. This sentence is incredible because it uses "a" with abstract nouns in a beautiful way. A moment of deep contemplation. Here, a moment has "a" because it is one moment, a single instance, and contemplation has no article because it is a general concept modified by deep. A gratitude he had never experienced before. Here is the key. A gratitude uses the indefinite article because it describes a particular type or quality of gratitude, one he had never felt before. It is not gratitude in general. It is a specific kind of gratitude that is being introduced for the first time. The pattern, a/an plus abstract noun when describing a type, a kind, or a new instance. A happiness she had never known. A fear that was completely new. A love so deep it changed everything. And then in the same sentence, not the gratitude you feel for small favors. Here, the is used because we are talking about a specific, familiar kind of gratitude that we all know about. This sentence alone shows all three patterns. No article for general concepts, the for specific identified instances, a for a type or new kind. Let's read the final sentence and see what Marco takes away from this incredible journey. Here is our final sentence. Listen carefully. When he finally reached land, Marco understood that the voyage had given him a new perspective on life, not the perspective of books or teachers, but the perspective that only solitude and the sea can provide. One last time. When he finally reached land, Marco understood that the voyage had given him a new perspective on life, not the perspective of books or teachers, but the perspective that only solitude and the sea can provide. What a beautiful ending, and it brings every grammar pattern together perfectly. First, the word perspective. Perspective is the way you see and understand something, especially based on your experiences. If you gain a new perspective, you see something in a way you had not before. Different people have different perspectives on the same event. A business leader's perspective is different from an artist's perspective. Travel gives you new perspectives. Now let's look at the article mastery in this final sentence. It is extraordinary. A new perspective on life. A is used because this is a new particular type of perspective that Marco gained. It is being introduced for the first time. The perspective of books or teachers. The is used because these are specific, identifiable perspectives. We all know what perspectives books and teachers give. The perspective that only solitude and the sea can provide. The, again, because it is made specific by the clause that follows it, the one that only solitude and the sea provide. And look at solitude and the sea. Solitude has no article. It is the general concept, just like in sentence 1. But sea has the because it refers to the specific sea Marco crossed. Here is the complete picture. 3 article patterns with abstract nouns. Pattern 1, no article for general concepts. Solitude is valuable. Pattern 2, the for specific identified instances, the courage of the soldiers. Pattern 3, a for a type, kind, or new instance, a perspective he had never had. If you can use these 3 patterns naturally, your English will sound significantly more polished and sophisticated. This is a skill that takes many learners to B2 and beyond. All right, now that we have broken everything down, let's listen to the entire story one more time, from beginning to end. Just listen and follow along. Marco chose solitude over comfort when he left the harbor in a small vessel, seeking freedom on the open Atlantic. The vast ocean stretched in every direction, and Marco realized that navigation at sea requires not just skill, but also deep trust in the instruments. The isolation of the open sea tested his resilience, but Marco found strength in the silence surrounding him. His provisions were running low, but Marco had learned to ration with care, treating every meal as a small victory against the ocean. In a moment of deep contemplation, Marco felt a gratitude he had never experienced before. Not the gratitude you feel for small favors, but a complete, overwhelming thankfulness for being alive. When he finally reached land, Marco understood that the voyage had given him a new perspective on life. Not the perspective of books or teachers, but the perspective that only solitude and the sea can provide. What a powerful journey. The long voyage taught Marco, and it taught us too. And that is a wrap. You have just completed one of the most challenging grammar lessons in this course. Let's look at everything you learned. Vocabulary. You learned 10 beautiful words: vessel, solitude, vast, navigation, isolation, resilience, provisions, contemplation, gratitude, and perspective. Grammar. You mastered article usage with abstract nouns. 0 article for general concepts, the for specific instances, a for a type or new instance, and how to choose between them based on meaning. This is a grammar area that many learners struggle with all the way to C1. By understanding these patterns now, you are ahead of the curve. Head over to the quiz section to test yourself, and try the role play. Discuss a personal journey with an AI partner using abstract nouns with the correct articles. See you in the next lesson.